right, it is 6 o'clock. Planning and Zoning Commission hearing was date January 8th, 2025. Can you call the roll call, please?
Zamora.
Here.
Harmon.
Here.
Boutros.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Whitbeck.
All right, we do have quorum, so moving on with the agenda. Any conflict of interest declarations from any commissioners?
No.
Seeing none, moving on, there's no special presentations. Takes us to item 5 on our agenda, which is our consent calendar. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Commissioner
Seconded.
Larson and a second for Commissioner Boutros. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? No one opposed, motion carries. That moves us to item 6, a review of our proceedings. So this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We serve both in a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity to the mayor and city council. There are 2 types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. Our recommendations are then forwarded to the city council, who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second is quasi-judicial hearings, which involves the consideration of a land use request such as annexation, rezone classification, and approval of subdivision preliminary plats. Excuse me. The public hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included into the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. This is followed by public testimony. The applicant or the applicant's representative will present a summary of the request for no more than 10 minutes. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in a neutral position, and finally those in opposition to the request. Note, all public testimonies will be limited to 3 minutes or less. In the interest of time, please refrain from repeating topics that have already been presented. The applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. So that moves us on to item 7 of the agenda. Old business. I'll go ahead and open this public hearing. This is for case number ANN 24-13, SPP 24-2, continued from 11/13/24. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 205 South 6th Avenue. Before you tonight is Element Ridge Subdivision, ANN 2413 and SPP 2402. There were 5 late exhibits submitted to the Planning and Zoning Department that have been presented by email and provided in front of you tonight, hard copy. Oh, 1 sec, I am just going to wait for the presentation really quickly. Thank you. The project location is 74.41 acre parcel located on the northwest corner of 10th Avenue and David Street. This site will have frontage along 10th Avenue to the east, David Street to the south, Moss Street to the north, and Bear Lane to the west. The project site is currently surrounded by agricultural Canyon County land to the north and west, Valley View Middle School to the east, and residential to the south. There are 4 developments within a 1-mile radius of the subject site that are either actively under construction or have been approved for entitlements. The applications before you tonight are for an annexation of 74.41 acres of land into the Caldwell city limits with the initial zone of R1, low density residential, and a preliminary plat for a subdivision. Tonight's request consists of the applicant's proposal for that annexation with low-density residential initial zone. The purpose of the R1 low-density residential zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that preserves and enhances single-family residential neighborhoods at a low-density standard, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Such zones should have a full range of urban services available or projected to be established. The proposed development is surrounded by county ag land and low-density residential in all directions. There's also some medium and high-density residential scattered to the east along with highway corridor along Karcher Road. Staff finds the low-density residential zone is a compatible zoning district next to other low-density residential and county land. The comp plan designation and development is low-density residential and is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan. The proposed densities are also in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed land use of single-family residential is a permitted zone within a permitted use within this zone. The applicant's proposing a development consisting of 215 single-family homes with 5.86 acres of qualifying open space. The proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with the city codes and policies, and staff finds the proposed development is in compliance with all parking and landscaping requirements, all bulk standards for lot size, setbacks, frontage, and height of buildings, and the proposed development is in compliance with all other zoning and subdivision ordinances. The proposed development will have adequate site access, and all utilities are available or will be available as outlined in the engineering staff report. One of those late exhibits provided to you was an updated engineering staff report just after some conversation with the applicant. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had concerns, Highway District Number 4 provided comments to consider, and then Valley View School District stated they currently have capacity, but are planning to be over capacity by 2029. And then we've received 8 public comments, 4 of which were those late exhibits. And then all of these public comments were in opposition due to traffic, lack of infrastructure in the area, and density. At the time the packet was sent out, staff had no specific conditions in the report, but staff is requesting that the commission add the following condition. Prior to City Council, applicant shall submit an updated landscape plan showing additional landscaping around the well site to act as screening. Staff recommends that if the commission recommends approval of the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. Thank you.
So we will hold questions until we'll have the applicant come on up. Becky Esguerra is welcome to come on up for her presentation for no more than 10 minutes, and then, I'm sorry. We'll have Becky Esguerra, the applicant's representative, come up for no more than 10 minutes, and then after that, commissioners, we can ask questions of both the applicant and staff if necessary.
Yep, thank you. All right, good evening. I'm here to present applications for Element Ridge for annexation and preliminary plat. Doesn't seem to be working. There we go. Thank you. The project is located west of 10th between Homedale and Karcher Road. Valley View Middle School, the new Falcon Ridge Elementary School, and Gem State Academy are directly east of the site. We have county property to the south and the proposed Verbena Ranch to the north. The comprehensive plan and future land use map designate this area as low-density residential. We are proposing a gross density of 2.89 dwelling units per acre, which is under the max of 3 dwelling units per acre. As you can see, the project is located well within the city of Caldwell's area of impact. The city, school districts, and EMS development will include 215 single-family lots, 33 common lots with a total of 5.86 acres or 7.9% qualified open space. The minimum lot size is 8,000 square feet with an average lot size of 8,638 square feet and a max of 11,956 square feet. We are also providing the city with a 2-acre lot to accommodate a water storage tank. Element Ridge will be fully developed in 6 phases. It's very important to remember that each phase will take about 2 years to complete. That's 12 years until we reach full build out. If this development is approved in the next 2 years, this area will see 48 new lots, roadway improvements to 10th and David. A couple of years from that, so 2028, this area will see 50 more lots and so on. This development will not bring 215 plus cars and people to the area at once. Its impact will be phased over 12 years. This is a newly proposed comprehensive plan. As shown, the city anticipates its development in this area and has outlined clear plans as to how development should proceed. Once approved, this new plan designates the parcel as Neighborhood 2, allowing for significantly higher densities. Our development, however, proposes much lower density, resulting in a reduced impact in the area. So here are the renderings for Element Ridge. We're proposing 1- and 2-story homes. These homes will have multiple material types, pop-outs, porches, providing visual interest on the exteriors. The interiors have modern, open concept with large windows, wood tones, and lots of natural light. The landscaping for Element Ridge subdivision proposes 7.9% or 5.86 acres of qualified open space with a total of 12.81 acres of total open space. Our amenities include an 8-foot pathway, open grassy areas throughout, sports courts, picnic areas, and bench seating. I want to touch on the traffic impact study and the roadway improvements that will be required with this project. The project build-out for Element Ridge subdivision is 2033. The development at full build-out is projected to generate 2,032 new weekday trips. One thing to note is that the Verbania Ranch project just north will add additional approaches. There will be entry and exit routes from Bear Lane off Homedale and Moss off 10th. So the red stars indicate the additional approaches that are not included in this TIS. The traffic improvements for David Street include a 5-foot detached sidewalk with curb gutter along the frontage, roadway improvements to the center line, and a left turn lane for the northbound vehicles. 10th Avenue will construct a 7-foot attached sidewalk along the frontage, half-width curb and gutter and roadway improvements. We'll also add a northbound right turn lane at Moss and a high visibility pedestrian crossing with adequate lighting and warning features for the existing crossing. Bear Lane will construct a half section with a 5-foot detached sidewalk, curb, and gutter. So the Verbania Ranch project, seeking entitlements just north of our site, will significantly improve 10th Avenue and the surrounding area. If approved, the Verbania Ranch project has been conditioned to fully construct a signalized intersection at 10th and Homedale with the first phase of their development. Toll will not be allowed to apply the traffic mitigation requirements to offset the cost of the signalized intersection. That mitigation fee will be applied to other deficient intersections within a 3.5-mile radius of the site. Additional upgrades will include full improvements on 10th, including curb, gutter, bike lanes, and sidewalks, multiple turn lanes. And in addition to that, they are to construct the north half of Moss Street, which would fully construct Moss with our development and their development. 90% of the roadway improvements in this area will be done with the Verbania Ranch project. I also want to note that, I also want to highlight that most of the roadway improvements in this area are initiated and completed through development projects, like this one. These improvements are essential for ensuring the safety of local residents and those traveling through the area. As I mentioned earlier, we're providing the city with a 2-acre lot to accommodate a water storage tank. Based on the topography of the project site, the City of Caldwell has identified the southwest corner of this site as optimal for placement of a water storage tank. This tank will be constructed by the city to support Zone 2 and provide correct pressure to the system and help with the overall fire flow. The utilities will include a water main throughout the development, which will connect to a 10-foot which will connect to a water main in 10th Avenue. For sewer, a pressure main will be directed through the development to 10th Avenue, then north to an existing gravity manhole at the intersection of 10th and Homedale. For the pressurized irrigation, this development will construct a pressurized irrigation pump station and piping system to service this development. And then all stormwater will be retained on site by using multiple retention features throughout the development. So I want to thank you for your time, and I hope we can make this project a part of the community.
Thank you.
Stand for questions, comments?
Perfect, thank you. I guess my first question, I think it's relevant to some of the other questions. The Verbena Ranch, has that been approved by council yet? No, okay. My question for the applicant, help me understand, so in one of your letters, the packet is 507 pages, on page 41 at the bottom. You talk about a temporary sewer lift until certain developments can happen. How long, tell me a little bit about that temporary sewer lift. How long is that, can that function? What happens if it takes longer? Like, how long is that temporary lifetime of that lift?
I'm going to defer that one to Haley.
Yeah, so the temporary lift station for their sewer is only going to be utilized until Verbena Ranch is able to continue the sewer through their development to service this site. That is part of Verbena Ranch's staff report, is that they have to provide sewer to Element Ridge. The lift station itself, though temporary in nature, will be able to continue to function for many, many years, and if something were to happen, Verbena Ranch gets denied, this temporary lift station will be able to continue to function for Element Ridge without any concerns until this other parcel to the north gets developed.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Boutros.
point of clarification, at the last hearing, the Verbena Ranch development was recommended for denial.
Yes. Correct.
Right.
That's a recommendation from this commission to council. Council sounds like has yet to make a decision. Other questions? I have others, but I will see. Commissioner Harmon.
I have one. So the water tank, and this is probably a city question also since they're putting it in, will that have any direct effect on any of the wells in the area there?
So we are only looking at a tank in this location.
Okay.
We are not looking at a well at this
Okay.
location, so it will not have impact to any existing wells.
Perfect, thank you.
Other commissioners, questions? I think I'm good at the moment.
Okay.
All right, so thank you. So at this time, we will move into public testimony. We start with those who signed up in favor. I do have one. J.D. Lyle, who signed up in favor but does not wish to speak. Just double check, there's several pages here. So then we move to neutral. Nobody has signed up in neutral, so it moves to those who signed up in opposition. We have several. So as I call you up, you'll have 3 minutes, and you're welcome to say ditto to the others and defer the rest of your time. But the first person I have here is Lene Van Valen. Would you like to come up and speak, please? And when you get to the podium, please say your name and address for the record, and then you're welcome to start your 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Lene Van Valen. My address is 15453 Rosewood Street. I was not born and raised here in Idaho like so many of my friends and neighbors, but I plan to stay here. My family loves it here, just like you. I agree with anyone who joins us and lives here also. Yes. I come to you tonight as an advocate for smart growth, and you are smart, and that's why you're sitting there. So, in talking with my neighbors and friends whose families have settled in Homestead, this land we now live on, they planned, built, lived smart on it. We honor and we respect that legacy to be good stewards of what we have been given. However, I do not believe the traffic analysis resulting in the proposed mitigation solutions are adequately addressing negative impacts that Element Ridge creates for my neighborhood. For instance, what are the plans for future expansion of the proposed left turn lane from 10th Avenue to David? What is the storage capacity for this proposed left turn lane? How can it and when will it be expanded in the future? What about a designated David left turn lane onto 10th? Where is this addressed? As planned, there will be increased traffic volumes, so it is at least striping for a left turn lane that would increase safety for those turning from David. It would be beneficial to provide additional information and descriptions of the proposed crosswalk improvements at David and 10th and the completion date. The speeding issue already existing on David is not addressed. With increased traffic volume, speed bumps, similar surface treatments could assist in maintaining future safe speed limits. Airport, Cypress, and Ashland will become a shortcut or cut-through route from Element Ridge to Karcher, and this issue is not addressed. This concern was brought up at the July neighborhood meeting with Adura. It's easy to conclude that these streets will not be the only neighborhood streets used as shortcuts for 10th and to Karcher as traffic volumes grow. Plans for any and all direct access from Element Ridge to the Somerset West neighborhood should be removed. Yes, I understand Kimball has already proposed to be direct access onto David, and this should be eliminated in the interest of neighborhood street safety. These issues need to be clearly understood and addressed in the traffic study reports so the average citizen can understand them. Also, how is the proposed water tank at the corner of Airport and David consistent with the residential community? This huge water tank belongs in an industrial or commercial area, not a residential area. Would you want to live next to this huge water tank project after you moved in? After it's built, then after you move in? But now our community walks, runs, uses the streets, visits and checks in with our neighbors, kids, dogs, grandkids on streets that have no sidewalks but feel comfortable and safe enough to do so. With this Element Ridge proposal, this will no longer be possible or safe enough with the additional traffic you will introduce to our neighborhood. The current sense of community will be destroyed. Please ask, has the integrity, safety, and quality of life for this existing neighborhood been considered? In this case, no. This is not smart growth. Then, no growth. This proposed annexation is how you were introducing the city of Caldwell to our Somerset West neighborhood. As it is, it's not a good look. You are not enhancing or helping our neighborhood at all, and you will change it forever, not in a good way. With these negative impacts, Element Ridge and the city destroys who and what we currently are. Really? Is this what you want in this legacy for our neighborhood? Is it how you want to be forever? No.
Thank you. Folks, I appreciate the passion, and we have to maintain decorum so we can get through our meeting and hear everybody's testimony, and everybody gets the appropriate amount of time. So we do have several others signed up here in opposition. Patrick Eiley, who chose not to speak. Same with Jan Eiley. Next, Larry Hollum. Would you like to speak? I didn't check. Yes or no? No? Okay. But in opposition. Same with Joe Ellen Hollum. Okay. Also in opposition. Next person I have signed up to speak is John Tuttle. Name and address in the record, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, good evening. John Tuttle, 15155 David Street, Caldwell. Quick question, I have a question for staff. Is that allowed?
At this point, you would just be providing your testimony to us, and then you can
Okay.
ask questions of staff later. You can present it, and they may be able to
Okay.
offer an answer later or
Okay.
during the rebuttal.
The question is a well planned near this water tank for later? I thought that I read that it was. So that concerns all of us in the neighborhood. We're all on community wells that you're gonna draw down our water table. And really, what I wanted to bring up was just the quality of life. You know, we've got the comprehensive plan and so forth, and it seems like Caldwell is trying to be, we're like Meridian and Nampa and all the others, where we're gonna stuff as many houses as we can in the land that's available. I don't think that's a good idea. We have lived there and enjoyed their semi-rural quality of life for 30 years. It's a quiet neighborhood, low traffic. We can watch the sunrises and sunsets over the farmland and adjacent farmland and see the mountains that surround this valley. And I think that's what's drawn everybody to that neighborhood, is to live. So what if it's 5 miles to the grocery store? It's nice, it's quiet, we've got some view, we can watch where our food comes from and so forth. The decision you all make on annexation is going to affect the quality of life for us and for everybody in the future. And now's our chance to make sure that we get it right. Seems like even though this is what we say is low density, it's pretty darn dense compared to what we've got, and we suggest that you deny this annexation. You require the developers for this one and maybe for the one down the road and other futures. Let's get bigger lots, put fewer homes but more land, places for kids to play in their yards, have friends over, have a little adventure. get out some energy, get outside. You know, the newer subdivision stuff's pretty darn close, expecting them to go to a park or something. They can play in their yards, maybe they'll get tired enough, they'll go to bed, they'll go to sleep, their parents will get a break. Just seems like it's a good idea. So do we want mile after mile of housing tracks in Caldwell? More traffic congestion? I know they're talking about improvements, but we're already 20 years behind. The state is just now started on Highway 55. Like I say, we've been out here almost 30 years trying to get them to improve that. If any of you drive that, holy cow, trying to get anywhere in the area is really a challenge. Let's put a couple more thousand cars on the road. It just doesn't seem practical.
That's
Valley
your
View
time, so
says
if
they
you
have
want to
room.
just wrap up real
Okay,
quick. Yep.
Valley View says it has room, but that's gonna be overcrowding there too. So, appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Chair, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So
Commissioner Miller.
if you were to recommend a density for us, what are you recommending, since they're below the 3?
Yeah, I would say, you know, similar to the neighborhoods there, 3/4 of an acre to one home, maybe acre, right in that neck of the woods.
Thank you.
Would be good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we have others signed up. Folks, please, signed up to speak. We have, or not to speak, but in opposition. Barbara Piles signed up in opposition, but did not want to speak. Rich Eaton and Tracy Eaton in opposition, not signed up to speak. The next person signed up to speak is Jeff Bullen.
Hello,
Hello. Name and address, please.
my name is Jeff Bolin, 16121 Susan Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho.
Thank you.
Lived in Idaho all my life. You know what? Graduated from that high school, now it's a middle school. You know, you want to intrude on our lifestyle and say, hey, annex us and not give us a choice. You know what? All I say is, you know what? If you want to expand, you know, do it right the first time. You know what? Our roads are not meant for this. Valley View High School, when I was there, was all farmland. Look at it now. It's not the same. So you guys are just looking at it and say, hey, let's just put homes in here, put homes in here. Sorry, it's not that way anymore. Valley View School District was Marsing, Homedale, Nampa. Now it's all homes. And you just want to say, oh, we'll annex you in. I'm sorry, you know what? Build roads first. Infrastructure. Get ready for it. If you want this, fine. You know, build the roads first, then say, oh, hey, now we can build some homes. But not just, hey, oh, we're annexing you in. This is our lifestyle. You're taking away like we're California. We're not California. I know you guys want that and you want tax or whatever's coming. Sorry. We have to do things right. Do it first. You know, I've worked at Costco. Look at it, 4 times on the Marketplace Boulevard. Rebuild it again. Really? How many times do we have to do it? Can we do it right once? Seriously, this is what I'm saying. You know what? Do it right the first time. Build the roads. If you want infrastructure, fine. Do it right the first time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Shelby Rivera signed up in opposition but did not want to speak. Brandon Eiley also did not want to speak but in opposition. Clet Bergson provided a letter. Would you like to come up and read your letter, Clet? Somebody could read it. I do have that. It was a late exhibit that I can read into the record real quick. This is for Clet Bergson. Council, I have a few questions and concerns. I'm very concerned about the water table, and I have a geological study, and if a geological study has been done, and what if its findings were on the aquifer, and if can handle the extreme demand. I have talked with the local hospital and asked them if they were ready to handle the extra demand. Of everyone that I talked to, that answer was no. We are short on doctors, and St. Luke's got overwhelmed when Seltzer pulled out. The only grocery store we have in the area is a Walmart Market. Their pharmacy has been short-staffed and had to close the windows to all refills, and all you can do is try the next day. Even the store has been overwhelmed. When I was taking my daughter to Valley View High, I personally seen Caldwell police watching the traffic that backs up from 10 to Homedale back to the school. There needs to be a continuous flow roundabout that would relieve the backup, and it is more cost-effective for the city than a light and you have the room with some small adjustments. With Highway 55 reconstruction starting, and then they are closing off Kimball, 255 and 10th proposed to be widened. The homes at the top of the hill will be locked out of from construction. That will make it even harder to get out to get to work. Highway 55 stated that there will be at times down to one lane. I feel that City Council is responsible for the city, and how it affects the people. You need to have the basic infrastructure in place, like food, stores, pharmacies, and medical, before you allow any further developing to continue. It's time to slow down and look at the bigger picture. Thank you, and I hope listening to all the people that you're going to be impacted by your decision. It's by Clint Bergson. Then next we have Terry Bell, who signed up in opposition and in opposition, did not want to speak. Bruce Hubdy did not want to speak, but is in opposition. The next person signed up is Lane Hadlock. Name and address in the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Lane Hadlock, living at 16159 South 10th Avenue, Caldwell. I would ask the commission to consider the current state of other construction of subdivisions in the South Caldwell area. There's a huge one there by the city park, Mallard City Park, that is still building homes. There's another one at 10th and Homedale that is building homes as well. Eustic and Kimball, that's a new one that they're starting building, doing the roads and the construction of the sidewalks. There's one at Florida, north of Karcher, that was approved by the commission a few months ago. That's at Florida and Karcher. There's one on Florida as well, across from the elementary school there. Going in, they're building a lot of new homes there. They're building new homes on Lake, north of Karcher. So I would ask the commission that with all these current projects underway, should we not consider pausing new construction until we see the impact of all these new construction that's going on south of Caldwell? I mean, it's ridiculous to say that we need more now. Supply and demand, there's going to be a huge supply of homes when all these subdivisions that are currently being built are completed. Do we not need to pause, or the commission pause any new building like this Element Ridge until we understand the impact of all 6 of these new developments? So I would ask that the commission consider pausing a new subdivision until we can, at least for, if the need is there and the supply is there, the demand is there, in a few years, maybe you approve some new development. But for right now, all these developments are there. I mean, what's the impact of that? We don't know right now. We will find out. But it's obviously going to be increasing population, increasing other elements of living in all these subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Brittany McGrew, who did not want to speak, but in opposition. The next person signed up to speak is Dennis Kramer. Name and address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Dennis Kramer. I reside at 16029 South Kimball Avenue, Caldwell 83607.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, esteemed council commissioners, I stand here to speak from my heart tonight. I'm approaching 75 years of age. I've been retired for about 12 years, worked hard all my life. I live in Somerset West subdivision by choice. I lived in a very confined subdivision in Meridian called Cedar Springs, right next to the big park off of Meridian Road and Eustic. And traffic and building just forced me where I just couldn't hardly drive the roads anymore to get from Meridian to Caldwell, where I go to church right across the street here. And so I said, I'm going to live closer to where I worship. And so surveying the county And the city, I decided to live in the county to where I had some room. I have a little over half acre, 2,200 square foot home. I have 20,000 square foot of lawn that I get the privilege to mow with my John Deere lawnmower. And I enjoy getting out and doing all of that. I enjoy the quality of water. My neighbors, who I get to intermingle with on unpaved sidewalks, which we don't have, which is fine. We do well in that situation. I'm opposed, obviously, to being crowded in again. At my age, I really don't want to try to sell and try to relocate and find something as sweet and nice of a deal that I currently have right now. And so I'm opposed to that. I want to say just in closing that I appreciate the city of Caldwell. I appreciate all that you do for our community. And I'm praying and believing you have our best interests at heart. And all I would say, if you haven't drove through our community and you haven't visited our community at any time of the day, I would encourage you to do that as well. Us who live on kind of the hill out there, and they're going to close off my road because I live on the corner of Highway 55 and Kimball. They're going to block that off where I can't even have access to Highway 55. Most all my traffic comes down Kimball, then I go to David to get to 10th to come into town. And the view at night, on a clear night, you get to see the beautiful city, all the city lights shining. It's kind of hard to put a dollar value on that. And I really don't want to have to looking through houses, rooftops, or whatever to spoil the view of the property that I purchased at a high price even 5 years ago when I bought it. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We have Bridger Flyer signed up in opposition but does not want to speak. We have Beth Carico signed up to speak. Name and address, please.
I'm Beth Carico, 16227 South Kimball Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho 83607.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I live on South David Street, which will be directly across the street from where Element Ridge will be going in. Though I am not against development, I see too much happening and too fast in a rather short amount of time and in an already busy traffic road area, South 10th Avenue. For the sake of time, I will comment on the main concerns I have. Though I'm not opposed to development, my hope is that it be done with proper preparation of adequate infrastructure and roads. There are a number of proposed, so I have 5 points. There are a number of proposed or developing subdivisions, including commercial lots, that will affect South 10th Avenue. There are 13, as was noted, but specifically there are 13 subdivisions that have been recently or are being proposed that will greatly and directly affect South 10th, totaling some 3,000 places of residence. When I see over 20 cars backed up at the Ustick and 10th stoplight, now I find it hard to believe the traffic study says that only 149 cars travel South 10th each morning. What time of day did that few of cars travel that avenue? Couldn't have been during school hours and morning-evening rush hour traffic. South 10th needs to become a road with 2 lanes going each way, with a turn lane and walking lanes for the students who walk to the nearby school, before any more subdivisions are planned, which you know are surely going to be approved for annexation. Number 2, regarding the Valley View School District, with 7 of 9 schools deemed to be at overcapacity by 2029, there is another area where more timely and adequate planning needs to come into play and not such a rush for the people's tax dollars. Can we really afford or are able to meet the needs so soon for so many more teachers, subs, maintenance, school bus drivers, admin, etc.? There absolutely should be a developer fee added to each home to help with the added cost of school needs. Increased staff and maintenance. You state that there is a letter that addresses the district stating that there were no concerns accommodating additional students. Was that letter in the agenda? I'm not sure.
It's in the packet, yes.
Okay, there's number 3. There should be a roundabout to include the entrance and exit to the Valley View Middle School, or children walking from the nearby subdivisions when it's dark or busy will be at the risk of drivers. Again, safety is written in any comprehensive plan. The next one, the water tower, only provides water to Zone 2, not for either Element Ridge nor nearby proposed Vermena Ranch, and later most likely for the proposed gas station, car wash, and commercial lots at Farmway and Karcher. It won't provide water for firemen in Element Ridge, as they will get that from city water hydrants. So the water tower and well house blocking the view of our current homes, which is one reason why my husband and I chose our home for the views, will not only see a city of homes, but a huge water tower that I thought was to be buried 10 feet, so as not to be so high and eyesore. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We also have Brad Carrico signed up to speak. Brad? Name
Good
and
evening,
address.
Brad Carrico, 16227 South Kimball Avenue. I only have a few short comments. I submitted a packet, emailed in, but I had a couple of comments that didn't come up. I thought about them after I emailed it. But I do have three questions concerning the application packet itself I'd like to address after my comments, if that's possible. Because
I mean, you could propose them, I'm not sure.
Well,
we'll take
it concerns wording in the packet itself. So I'll address that after I get through my comments.
Okay.
Like my wife, I feel that the development will probably be approved and happen. But one of the things that we do have is a really good view. It took me 8 trailer loads of wood to get it out of there to get the view that she wanted, along Kimball Avenue, along David, excuse me. The thing is, we would like to be able to keep some of those views, and would it be possible that all the houses, new houses that are facing or back up to David, be single story, no 2-story houses? Because in that way, it would still maintain some of the view line for us people that live along David Avenue. Next question I have, we lived in West Valley Estates for a while, and even though we had an HOA, the subdivision became a rental property haven for people that, corporations and investors come in, bought up the houses, turned everything into rentals. The neighborhood has gone downhill since we moved out of there. What assurances are we going to have that this neighborhood will not have that? Are they going to have a very strong HOA that will deal with this? Or are there restrictions could be placed on rental properties? And on the ins and outs of Valley View Middle School. Right now, there's a lane in and a lane out and they're proposing deacceleration lanes and turn lanes in the center of the street. Is it possible that they could work with the school district, put one roadway in between those, there are 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out, with one roundabout in 10th Avenue? And then that would solve having those 2 ins and outs the way they're set up now. The roundabout would solve some of the backup and traffic problems that has been proven by the roundabouts the city put in. When I was with the fire department, I thought those were going to be the worst things in the world. I actually love them. So that's kind of my comments that weren't in the ones that I submitted, so I'd like to ask the questions if possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be the appropriate forum. You can ask them, and possibly the developer can answer them during her rebuttal.
Okay, well, it's actually, on page 18, it says site project background and history. It says the subject site was annexed into the city of Caldwell in 1960, and in addition to the Hillcrest subdivision from 1917. The subject site became the location of First Assembly Church of God, which is at the corner of Ustick and 10th. Proposed site access on page 24. The development is proposing to build full access points to David, Bear, Moss, and 10th. Access to individual lots is proposed via local streets and alleys. Next line says no direct access is proposed nor allowed to any of these classified roadways. So how the hell are you going to get in and out of it?
Thank you. So that's your time. And so I would encourage maybe the applicant to answer some of those questions. We have Ron Dillon signed up to speak. Name and address, please.
Ron Dillon, 15187 Daniel Street, Caldwell.
Thank you.
Caldwell is guilty of false advertising. Their current logo behind you on the wall shows rolling farm ground, a beautiful red barn, grapes. This is the logo we need, folks. This has dark skyline, a hotel being built at the fairgrounds, and hands and money changing. There you go. Developers paid lots of money for this pristine Idaho ground, and they want to make lots of money. I'm not against growth or people making money, but I am against acre after acre of rich agricultural land getting chopped up and forever changed. As I told you recently at the Verbena Ranch hearing, these projects could never happen in Oregon. They were visionary enough to pass the 1973 Farm Act, which places great value on farmers and their ground. Sadly, Idaho doesn't have a Farm Act, but we do have the Canyon County Comprehensive Plan, which is being conveniently sidestepped by Caldwell annexing whatever property their little heart desires. But we also have Idaho State Law 67-6502, which reads, "Purpose of this act shall be to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the people of the state of Idaho as follows." We don't have time for me to go through every point of it, but I've highlighted a few here. 1, ensure that adequate public facilities and services are provided to the people at reasonable cost. It isn't your fault, P&Z, but since the Idaho legislature has failed to charge developers in this state with the majority of impact fees, taxpayers get hammered with them. 2, encourage the protection of prime agricultural land and land uses for production of food, as well as the economic benefits that they provide the community. At the rate that farmland is being chewed up, there won't be any agricultural land left in Idaho, certainly not in Canyon County, in another 10 years. Where's our food supposed to come from? 3, encourage urban and urban-type development within incorporated cities. Here's the irony, guys. I work in the development industry, and I'm currently working directly with the city councils in Milwaukee, Oregon. I would love to share some of that information with you. And Ojai, California, to create affordable housing solutions and some high-end housing solutions using 3D printed homes. We're using additional dwelling unit models in urban settings, trying to save open spaces and farmland outside city limits by building higher density within existing city limits. The developers that are appearing before you for all these projects are using old school building models and encouraging urban sprawl. Their models are lagging years behind where they should be in 2025. I guarantee that they don't know anything about 3D printed houses, which are up to 40% cheaper and far better built. Lastly, undo water and air pollution. We're already experiencing smog and inversions. How much air pollution is going to be added by all the additional cars that are going to be on our roads? Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Gordon Tyrol. I'm sorry if I butchered that last name. Signed up to speak. Tyrol. Sure. And then we'd enter.
Okay, my name is Gordon Terriell. I live at 16226 Horizon in Caldwell. I'm really against this whole process of expanding out. We were here just 2 weeks ago arguing about Verbena Ranch, and I brought up the fire statistics that I just handed y'all. Okay, this is such an unsafe move. And if you get to it, there's plenty of documentation from Caldwell Fire about their travel times versus the national average and stuff like that. There's not very much coming from the police department. I've looked, I can find crime stats through the FBI, but I can't find response times. Okay, and here we are with another subdivision going in even further than Verbena Ranch, and it's going to extend the times even further. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm losing my track here because I'm getting angry. Okay, currently Caldwell has 1.13 officers per 1,000 citizens. It's down from 1.25 in 2020. The national average is 2.4 officers per 1,000. Expanding the city is just going to make those numbers smaller. As a former officer, I can speak from experience when I say that a department is understaffed, its officers are asked to do more. An increase in homes and residents will further strain a police department that can't handle it. Increased calls for service, increases in violent crime will result in overworked officers. These officers will be dealing with transplants from other states, I don't want to name which ones, who expect laws and services commensurate with the state from which they came. This can and will lead to increased complaints and hostile interactions. Overworked officers make mistakes, there's no doubt about it. Mistakes lead to lawsuits, and lawsuits cost the city large sums of money. Along with that, everybody on this board, on the city council, anybody whose name's attached to the city will be named in any lawsuit that comes up because somebody gets hurt or their house doesn't get saved or they croak on the side of the road because they can't get a response from fire or from the police department. Finally, Caldwell's currently struggling to pay for a bridge that they inherited several years ago. And you see it on the news, you read about it. They don't have the money to fix that, but they're going to do all these other expansions of water towers. Where's that money going to come from? Mistakes are made, and annexation is a big mistake. The city can't afford to plan, you know, they just, in the plan that when she brought it up here, that this new subdivision is going to be entitled to all the city services. You can't cover them now. The response times are low. You can't replace your police officers. There are not that many out there want the job anymore. The government's destroyed that for these guys. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
It's a safety matter, and people are going to die.
So then we also enter it as a late exhibit, hit your entry, so we'll just enter your entry in the record, which is a variety of statistics from Caldwell Fire Department newsletters and some FBI statistics. Elijah, do we have somebody signed up online via Teams? Might just have a note to check. I'm sorry? Oh, is it for the comp plan on? Okay, so that's not for this. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So that was everybody who signed up for public testimony. So at this time, I would ask the applicant to come up and present a rebuttal, please.
All right. Okay, so thank everybody for their testimony. But the site is located in an area of impact. Development is expected for this area. It's been looked at for years and years. As I stated earlier, roadway improvements come with development. A majority of the issues that were addressed will be solved by our development or tolls development. This area will see the construction of 2 new roads, Moss and Bear. Those are to be funded by the developer. That will also have a positive impact on traffic as it will divert trips elsewhere, off 10th. As for density, we are below the density limit, and we're in full compliance with city code and the comp plan. And if we pause development, there will be more housing shortage in this area. I mean, people aren't going to stop coming to the Treasure Valley. We're just going to create more of a shortage, and folks need a place to live. The homes to the south will actually, in response to making the homes to the north of David 1-story, the homes to the south in the county actually sit quite a bit higher than the homes will in Element Ridge. So the 2-story homes will look over the 2-story homes in Element Ridge just due to the topography of the project site.
Folks, let's be respectful. You had respect as you spoke. Please continue.
And then as for the emergency services, the development impact fees, portion of those fees go towards the funding of fire and police and all the emergency services. And then as for the water tank project will connect to an existing infrastructure located in Pressure Zone 2 by Homedale Road. This connection will be backfed, will backfeed the water tank. No well is proposed to supply this tank, and maybe Haley can touch on that a little bit more. But I guess that's it. We're proposing a really nice plan. We're in full compliance with the code and the comp plan, and we hope we can make this development a part of the community.
Thank you. I do have one question that came up that I had from my notes. And so maybe for staff. So in one of the letters that was provided in the packet on page 104, It was from last name Hoover. Referenced a neighborhood letter with 40 neighbors that signed it. Was that ever provided to staff? That wasn't in the packet, so I'm wondering about that.
Chair and Commissioners, no, staff never received anything with 40 signatures.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant or for staff at this time? Commissioner Larson.
I have a couple. So if you were to develop a 3/4 to 1 acre home, do you have a rough estimate of how much that would cost?
I don't off the top of my head. Maybe the engineer's here. Maybe he can compute that a little bit faster than me.
Do you have an idea?
You're saying the cost of a home?
The cost of a home, one of your guys' home.
Yeah, you're saying the home itself or the lot itself?
It would be the total of both, because the house would be on the lot. Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, I'm not a realtor, so I'm not gonna speak to the cost of lots.
Okay. And then thank you. And then a couple questions for staff. Do we have a percentage of the agricultural land that is part of the comp plan? Do you guys know what that number is? I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know if we know what it is. Or if we have one though, don't we?
Planning and zoning, Morgan Bisa. I do not know what the percentage is. I do know that from this current plan to the draft plan that you guys saw at your last meeting, it is going down substantially because a lot of the farming area we are taking out of our planning area and giving back to the county to be in charge of. And so it is, that percentage of farmland is shrinking in the new plan, but I don't know what that number is.
Okay. And then a couple other questions, just to clarify for the audience here. We talked about there being the valley having the housing shortage. Can you provide that information for them shortly, and then a couple more questions?
We will be touching on that later with the comprehensive plan. Okay. I believe that we are today short roughly 1,000 units in Caldwell, and that's projected to obviously increase over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. And then the last question was for Haley, for the roads that you would just clarify. Is there any plan to improve 10th Street in the future? I know that all the other roads normally require development, but there's nothing in the works planned for 10th Street, correct?
Yeah, so the city doesn't currently have intentions on this portion of 10th for improvement, but as the applicant has stated, it's the developers who typically are building out these roadways for us, and they complete the frontage improvements as part of their development, and that's how we see these existing roadways get built out and improved, is through the developers.
Okay. And then one last question for staff is the clarification that we have no control over the impact fees of schools.
That is correct, and that's set at the state level.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. I do have one follow-up question, and this may be for staff. I mean, in the time I've been on this commission, I don't remember seeing, so I'm referring to the engineering report, sorry, I drew a blank there as I was scrolling here, referencing specifically, so general one, so it's page 77 of the 507-page document. Applicants shall follow all staff report conditions below, as well as the comments within the Verbena Ranch Master Plan Development. I guess in the time I've been here, I guess I haven't seen, or at least recognized, where a condition is conditioned on something that has yet to be approved. And so is that standard?
Sorry, yes, I was looking at our staff report so I could find which note did you say it was as I'm scrolling through?
So it was under the section, the general section, item 1.
Item 1. Staff report.
So I don't know if you're looking at the PDF that's here. It's page 77 of the PDF.
Yes, so I'm as well as all comments. I'm honestly wondering if this was a typo on our end and we intended it to be the Element Ridge staff report. Sorry, I didn't mean to accidentally turn my microphone off. I think that this might have been a typo on our end, and we just forgot to update the staff report to say Element Ridge rather than Verbena Ranch. And we certainly will get this fixed before City Council.
Okay. Other questions from commissioners? All right, thank you. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony. Commissioner Boutros made a motion.
Second.
Second for Commissioner Larson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now it's time for us as commission to deliberate and come up with a decision. Commissioners, Commissioner Boutros.
If I could first address a comment that was made about an annexation in 1960, that was already brought to the attention of staff, and it's a holdover from some other application, and that's going to be corrected, but we did catch that. The Valley View School District letter states, as noted by staff, that they're going to be over capacity by 2029 from other developments that have already been approved. And I have the verbatim language, which is what you were looking for. Although the district currently has capacity in the near future to accommodate new students with the 2 new elementary schools opening in the fall of 2025, it is projected that the already approved subdivisions will put 7 of Valley View's 9 elementary schools over capacity by 2029. So that's the exact language from the letter. Page 41 of the PDF file is the Ardura letter describing the project. The sewer paragraph describes the intent to connect through the Toll West development to the north, but that development was recommended for denial. The temporary sewer lift station described as an interim solution should be considered as a permanent solution. So I don't know what the difference is between a temporary and permanent lift station, but as the chairman pointed out, the development needs to stand on its own without depending on the existence of another development, whether that development ends up continuing to be denied or gets approved eventually. This development should stand on its own. Water availability at required pressures is still an issue similar to other recent applications. The letter from Highway District 4, starting on page 94 of the PDF file, contains several cautions regarding stormwater runoff management with a recommendation for pass-through and attenuation of runoff entering the Element Ridge subdivision from adjacent already approved developments. The Element Ridge application only discusses stormwater retention from the development and doesn't appear to consider the additional runoff mentioned in the Highway District 4 letter. Highway District 4 goes further in requesting that the city accept the maintenance of 10th Avenue between Karcher, that's State Highway 55, and Homedale Road, an expense to the city which appears unexpected. Page 96 begins the Boise Project Board of Control, which has responsibility for the Forest Canal. Their letter emphasizes that storm drainage and street runoff must be retained on site, which may be impossible when the Highway District 4 concerns on runoff are included. It doesn't appear that the necessary resources to support this development exist at this time. It may be necessary to delay approval until the resource availability regarding potable water, sewer, school capacity, and road performance are clarified in the next couple of years. I recommend, Commissioners, denying this application until those issues can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. And
I'm sorry, you should not be applauding. The chairman has asked a couple of times for decorum. Please respect that.
So I just want to piggyback on several things that Commissioner Boutros said. I think for me, and I agree with a lot of this, I asked in the engineering report, it's kind of contingent on the Verbena Ranch. It may be a typo, but also when I look at the applicant's letter, it refers to a temporary lift until Verbena Ranch. So I think it is dependent on another thing to exist, and that thing has yet to be approved. And I'm very challenged in feeling comfortable approving this contingent on something that has yet to be approved, in addition to some of the other concerns, particularly with water and some of the other things that Commissioner Boutros said. But I think the idea of this approving this based on something that has yet to be approved really challenges me right now. And so because of that and some of the other comments already made, I am not in support of this at the moment. Commissioners, other thoughts?
I would agree. I don't think I like that the Verbena Ranch is always being talked about when it hasn't passed city council yet. And just so you guys know, ours is just a recommendation, right? I mean, city council will make the ultimate decision on all this stuff. But the person who talked about rental properties, I just want to touch on this just real quick, just so you know. Idaho State Code, Section 55321, HOAs cannot deny a rental. So they can do rentals. So I just want you guys to know that, whoever's saying that it can't, not to have rentals in there, they just, per the state code. I don't know, I'm struggling with this one a little bit. The lift station thing does bother me. I agree, it should be on its own accord and not on something that hasn't been fully approved yet. I think the development's nice, don't get me wrong, I think it's nice, I think it's well done. I think it'll bring value to the houses around it. And to be honest, the roads aren't gonna get done unless these developments come in. That's just plain and simple, so you're never gonna get a road prefixed if a development doesn't come in. Yeah, I don't know, I'm still struggling with it.
Thank you. Other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards no, but not because of the development and all the stuff she brought up, because they're meeting code and they're under 3, which I think is all great. But I think the dependency upon another development doesn't make, it seems a little sketchy for legal, and we've already had some struggles recently, so I would not want to recommend based on that one reason alone, is that we shouldn't have, all of them should be able to be self-sufficient. So if they can't be self-sufficient, then we need to either provide more funding for infrastructure and then do that, which is not normal, or have them build something smaller, or wait until the other one gets denied or approved. But yeah, they should all be self-sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, the development's great, and if it was sitting on its own, it'd be a totally different decision for me.
Other thoughts from commissioners?
Chairman, sorry. Could I provide you more information with the lift station at
Yes,
this time?
please.
So it is temporary because we would like to avoid lift stations when they're not needed. So the reason that it is considered to be a temporary lift station is because there is a path to gravity sewer this line. The word temporary, though, this lift station could operate permanently as it's designed. So if the Verbena Ranch never gets approved, a developer after Verbena Ranch comes in and still is not able to get anything approved, the lift station, as they are designing it, can function permanently. We just refer to it as a temporary because we just prefer not to have lift stations within city when we can avoid it. So the only reason it's temporary is because we would like to get it offline, but it itself can work in a permanent nature.
Can you clarify the water situation then too? Water keeps coming up, so can you just clarify that real quick?
Yeah, so we're working with a few developers. We also have a city-owned property for looking at well sites. We had originally looked at Element Ridge for a potential well site, and we determined after working with our hydrogeologist that it was not a well-suited location because of what the water quality was at this property. So we just received approval from City Council to dig several test wells to determine several locations where we can dig a permanent well. We have test wells for 3 locations. We only need 1 well to come online to feel comfortable serving the new development that is coming and a large amount of development that's coming. The tank on the property is serving a different water zone. However, when we place water tanks, we place them at very specific elevations because we need to have enough hydraulic grade to gravity feed down into a pressurized system. So we have to fit them at a very specific elevation because of the topography in this area and because of other landowners in the area that are not willing to sell the city property. This development is really the only location that we can place a tank. It will be 20 feet deep and only about 16 and a half feet of the tank will be above ground. So 20 of the feet will be below ground. We'll work with planning staff to have vegetation around the tank so that it's not an eyesore. People won't be looking just at a tank. We will try to vegetate it and make it as beautiful as a city can.
Thank you.
I believe the documentation says 10 feet buried, not 20.
We've been working further with our water consultant, and we are looking at 20 feet buried.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from commissioners? If not, I would entertain, this would be an appropriate time to present a motion. Commissioner Boutros.
I can do that. Do we need to close testimony?
It was already closed.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, so I can do this. Based upon the testimony and evidence and record in this matter, upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for annexation of parcels R32681 and R32679 with a zoning designation of R1, low-density residential, and case number SPP 24-02 for a preliminary plat for Element Ridge subdivision is recommended for denial because of dependency on other development and lack of resource availability.
There's a motion from Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Larson. Roll call, please.
Boutros.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Harmon.
Yes.
Sorry. Whitbeck. Zamora.
Yes. All right, so motion carries. And so that, and just for clarity, that the motion, the yes votes were to deny this request. So with that, I'll close that public hearing and we will move on with our agenda. All right, give me 1 second. So moves us on to new business, action item 1 of new business. Just wait a moment as people are clearing and we'll start with the next agenda item. All right, going ahead and the next item is public hearing. Call this, open this public hearing. It's legislative in nature. It's case number CPM 24-3. Staff report. I believe Morgan's going to do an introduction, and then we have the consultant doing the presentation.
Good evening, Commission. Morgan Bisa, Planning and Zoning. Before you this evening is finally the comprehensive plan. The full draft, you've seen bits and pieces before. You've seen the vision, you've seen the land use map, but tonight we have the entire plan in front of you. And we are very excited to have it before you this evening after almost 18 months. Our consultant is online and will be walking you through the plan. And then the entire plan was provided in your packet as well.
All right, and what's the name of the consultant online?
I apologize. So Logan Simpson is our consultant and Miriam will be presenting.
All right. Miriam, or Marion?
Miriam.
Miriam, you are up if you can hear me.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep, thank you.
Great. Do you want to see me too?
It is up to you.
I can put on my video as well.
It's up to you.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me. This is a very exciting part of the process, and I'm thrilled that you've had me back to walk you through the result of this 18-month process. So with the next slide, I just want to go through, for the benefit of the commission as well as the audience members, just a recap of what this 18-month process has been, where we came from, what our initial task was, and the end result. So the 2040 Comprehensive Plan was adopted just 4 years ago, five years ago in 2020. And so it's a relatively recent plan, but due to significant growth and a number of issues that have come up in the last few years, the city has decided that it would be a benefit to take a fresh look at that plan and make some updates. So what you have in front of you tonight is the updated comprehensive plan based on significant public input and a whole process to kind of re-envision how Caldwell wants to be in the future. So as a reminder, this is a 10 to 20 year planning horizon. We are looking long-term, and a comprehensive plan really is that non-regulatory guiding document that helps provide the roadmap, the compass, and a kind of a consistent understanding of what kind of community Caldwell will be working toward over the next few years. So the next slide goes through the process. We started last September 2023 in a 3-phase process where we started really understanding what are those issues, what are the key, what's going wrong with our existing comprehensive plan, and what are the issues that we really need to focus on in this update. The phase 2 focused on, now that we understand that foundation and kind of the priorities of the community, how do we build that into a comprehensive plan? What does that really look like? So with those 2 phases, we did significant outreach, vision outreach, opportunities and choices outreach. We had an additional activity specifically focusing on the future land use plan in that interim draft of that land use chapter. And then the phase 3 is really pulling it all together. So we've heard what the community is saying. We've workshopped with local leaders, regional partners, folks at the table to really build into this new plan and what that will look like. And the next slide here goes into a little bit more detail about what that public engagement looked like. So just in total, we had 12 events, 6 online activities. We had a steering committee that met 8 times. So event and online participation, over 1,000 folks participated at these events and online activities. And we did have a project-specific website and kind of our information hub, and that saw a lot of traction too. So while maybe our numbers aren't in significant thousands for engagement, we did see a lot of people reviewing and kind of absorbing and being notified and understanding that this process was happening. The next slide, I want to make sure that we can recognize all those folks that really participated, including this commission. We've met with City Council. Staff has been of amazing support, and we did have a whole team of expert consultant group here. I'm with Logan Simpson, but we had a Leland Consulting Group who helped with our housing and economic analysis. Kimberly Horn bringing in the transportation component. GGLO looked at urban design and helped us with some graphics. And SMR development really was looking at redevelopment and potential with the urban renewal area specifically. So in addition to the Caldwell community that really showed up for this process, there are a lot of really strong partners in developing this. I would be remiss to say that the comprehensive, I want to point out the comprehensive plan committee too, and there is a letter of support included in the plan itself. Wonderful group of folks that really helped us wrestle with conflicting public opinion, different trends, and really bringing in their expertise and knowledge about the community. The next slide goes into more recently, we did have a public draft series of events and public comment review period. So we got a lot of comments, a lot of suggestions on improvement, even just technical revisions. And so actually 258 minor revisions have been made since that public draft. So since the public has reviewed it in December, we've made some really minor tweaks, including map edits, language clarification, and some graphic updates. So we really think that the draft that you have in front of you tonight is publicly supported. We've addressed the comments, hopefully, all of the public comments that we've received. Staff has done a really thorough review as well, just to make sure that this is in line with existing regulations and the direction that they would like to take this. Based off of that, the next slide shows how that all kind of comes together. So that was the public input side. Context and data analysis was done in phase 1, but all of this input goes into the real structure of the plan. So we have a hierarchy of vision and values, goals and policies that support that vision in that direction. And then all of that goes into actions and strategies. That's the implementation part. And then one of the largest and most important tools that you have in this plan is the land use map and its descriptions. So that's kind of the high level of what you're getting out of this process in this deliverable. What it looks like in terms of the structure is on the next slide. It is an 8-chapter body of the plan with another, I won't say half a dozen appendices. But similar to what you're familiar with in terms of what we've reported back to you through the process. We have an introduction overview. Future land use plan is a significant chapter. And then chapters 3 through 7 really are the goals and policies to embody and articulate the specifics about what that future land use plan should be. And then implementation, of course, to round out and bookend the chapters. I do not intend on going through significant detail on this presentation, just to keep this brief and respect the time of the commission and folks in the audience. But I will go through at a high level of what we're looking through into each of these chapters. So the next slide, starting off chapter 1, this includes a lot, including just an overview of the purpose of the plan, how to use it, what is the context that we're planning in. This is a snapshot of the spread for existing conditions. Included also in this chapter, you'll see the comprehensive plan vision and those vision themes that we've discussed we established in phase 1, and then an overview of the public engagement in the planning process. It has come up already through this, at this meeting in the previous public hearing of housing needs. So I just wanted to call out on this screen that we did do a housing analysis, housing demand and housing needs assessment, which is included here. And we were looking at, a long-term understanding of the horizon of this plan is 20 years ultimately. So what would be the demand and the kind of the gap in housing needs through this? And our housing expert identified just shy of 9,000 units, essentially. 8,817 new housing units would be needed by 2040 to meet housing demand. I would say, though, that I'm going to call it specifically, the importance of this is what type of housing is really important. A big focus of this process was to understand housing gaps. And so that missing middle, or certain types of housing are still missing in Caldwell. And the vertical bar will help articulate that some of the lower, I don't want to say lower income, but kind of subsidized, lower priced rentals are a significant need for them. So over 50% are going to be in that lower end, lower price point need. Okay, I promise I won't go too much into the detail and data, but the next slide goes into the vision, which was really exciting to prepare, and it covers 5 different themes, which we've organized our whole plan around to really reinforce this direction. So it's, the vision states Caldwell honors its heritage and embraces its future through thoughtful growth, mixture of housing, accessible community connections, and distinct spaces. And under that, Caldwell, that means that Caldwell is a connected community. It has vibrant gathering spaces. It addresses where rivers, parks, and agriculture meet. It has quality neighborhoods to call home, and it has intentional and distinct centers. So this is kind of the biggest takeaway of this new update, and everything else kind of fits in there to support this direction. I want to go to the next slide just to highlight that as part of this process, Caldwell also received a health grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Idaho. And so we have integrated a health analysis and assessment throughout the whole process. So you can note throughout the plan where we have kind of a health intersection call out and really kind of making the connection as much as possible to the policy direction that we're proposing in this plan and the health benefits associated with that. There is a full health conditions report or analysis. I'm not sure what the final title was, but it's an appendix and quite robust with a lot of mapping of the different social determinants of health. So that is something to look forward to. The next slide goes into chapter 2. And as I mentioned, this is a very robust, very important chapter looking at land use. And before we go into the detail of what this chapter includes, I want to just highlight and reinforce what's already, I think, articulated in the staff report. But the planning boundary for this plan has shrunk, really, from the 2040 comp plan. So we've pulled in the planning boundary on the west side. We have extended a little bit to the north to include the Purple Sage golf course, the city-owned golf course. So we're really very conscientious about what areas we want to plan for surrounding the city limits. I want to also say that this future land use plan is intended to be more flexible and hopefully more character driven than zoning driven, I guess. So the old plan or your current plan is really a one-to-one future land use designation to zoning. And we've consolidated and we've pulled back these place types, these future land use designations, to really be more character based. And so we have 4 types of neighborhood. We have, and then 5 types of kind of non-residential centers, but a lot of mixed use built into that. And then we have a special purpose district. Within this, and we can go, I'm not going to go into specifics, but if you have questions to each of these place types, we can certainly dig into it. But I want to just reemphasize that this is intended to allow for higher densities and a more supported density range within each of these to help actually the market build the right type of housing that Caldwell is missing. We are increasing densities toward the core where there are services, access to existing infrastructure, really to utilize the infrastructure that's already there and to limit sprawl so that we can maintain the rural and agricultural areas on the fringes of the community. We have also changed the industrial land area designation surrounding the Boise River to more allow for retail restaurant housing and other mixed uses areas. And we've enlarged the future boundary of the downtown to cross the railroad tracks to Chicago. So kind of a larger understanding of what downtown could be. Okay, next slide. as part of this chapter, it's kind of 4 pages for each of the place types to help you understand. Great. So there's a lot of content here, a lot of description, a lot more than your current plan had. If you go back just one slide for me, I want to highlight, just a little bit of that content so you understand the kind of the intent of how we're organizing the kind of the profiles of each of these place types. So we have an illustration. These were all developed early in the process through our visioning events with the public. We have an overall description. We have density ranges, so minimum, maximum, and understanding of what a density bonus could look like. We have where those areas are going to be on the map. We have an understanding of design characteristics. So what is the intended scale? What does the block look like? What is the transition need to be? You know, what are the kind of the nuances of these areas? Some of the areas have area hubs, which I think there's a handful on the map that are really intended to be kind of a center or a focus. You'll see a little bit more intensity of development at major intersections, that kind of thing. We have the health intersection, so there's a call out there about how how this place type can work toward healthy living and lifestyles. And then we have a mix of land uses. And so you'll see kind of an understanding of what the intended mix of land uses would be. We have a generalized ratio here on that bar chart, not giving specific percentages, but just an understanding of this is the type of mix that we are generally hoping to see in these types of land uses. Okay, so the next slide there goes into kind of an overview of the types of uses you'd see within each of these place types. So you'll kind of see the intensity of residential varies as you get down closer to like downtown, the core. You'll see a little bit more office, flexible industrial spaces toward the employment centers. And then the special purpose district really are for the areas that don't have an easy fit. You know, the college, the airport, the hospital, and a lot of those areas will need to be flexible, and there's some underlying zoning that we'll just be looking at for more specifics there. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide here. The intent of neighborhood 1 is the lowest density zoning for lowest density residential areas intended to be along the Boise River to the north and really act as a buffer to the west with Canyon County. This includes something we're calling a conservation development idea, which is really intending to encourage clustering of so that you have a tool at your disposal to have open space or working agriculture or otherwise preserved open space, even though you're developing certain areas. So that the character of those areas really does still feel very compatible with a kind of the rural settings to the west, and transition then to the suburban and more built up, developed areas closer to center of town. Neighborhood 2, the next slide, is one step up. This is the majority of the neighborhoods in Caldwell. I hesitate to say that it's a suburban feel, but I think a lot of the existing neighborhoods have kind of been built up that way historically. We are recognizing that not a lot will change necessarily in some of these more established neighborhoods, but understanding that these are interspersed between commercial areas and major arterial roads, and so there's some sensitivity to how we transition, primarily residential neighborhoods to more intense uses at their edges. How can we integrate other neighborhood serving uses within those neighborhoods? And of course, integrating open space and parks throughout the city. Neighborhood 3, again, as we're just stepping up in intensity here, this is really isolated to be a buffer, south and west of Cleveland, where you'll see a little bit more density and intensity, multifamily units, and then along Highway 2026, up where there's a lot of opportunities for new development along that corridor. One more residential neighborhood, urban neighborhood, is the next slide. And this is intending to recognize the historic districts and the existing historic neighborhoods in and around downtown that are really special. So we're not recognizing, or we're not suggesting and recommending in this plan that there will be significant changes to those areas. They are very special in how they've been built, but we want to recognize the flexibility of kind of refurbishing, reinvestment, redevelopment in an appropriate scale. So you'll see that this is not intended to be the intensity of neighborhood 3. These are really special areas that we want to preserve in their own right. Community center is the next slide. This is our first non-residential intended centers place type. All of these are really intended to be mixed use, but at different scales. So community center, you'll notice, is a little bit off of the highway, off of the major corridors. This is intended to really serve at a community level. So you'll see a lot of low to mid intensity development, commercial development, and mixed use here. The step up from that is the next slide, mixed use center, which is really intended to be more of that regional draw. You'll see it right off of the highway and Cleveland and kind of west of downtown, those major highways, major arterials, and some pockets to the south off of Karcher too. So really intended to be a larger, more regional draw and still mixed use in nature. Finally, downtown as one of our most important place types, center place types, I mentioned that we've enlarged the area and hopefully we've been able to articulate some of the intended special nature of downtown, the importance of downtown to the community, and how we can build it up and reinvest, not only in the kind of the historic downtown, but that expanded area as well. Employment center is an interesting one on the next slide. Thank you. This is looking at a lot of kind of reserving some industrial area, but really a flexible use for institutions, industrial, some office, commercial. So you'll see that these areas are surrounding the airport, and then north of downtown, there's a significant area. So these are really intended to be kind of employment-based uses in however that looks. And then finally, the final place type, I hope I haven't run through these too fast, but we can always circle back if there are any questions. Special use, as I mentioned, really places that don't quite have a easy fit. So the airport specifically, the college, the hospital, and the county buildings and facilities as well. So kind of governmental special use areas. And this one doesn't quite fit the mold. There are a lot of details that say variable dependent on location and underlying zoning, that kind of thing. It's really kind of a as needed by review type of use or place type. So the next two slides just are a close-up of the future land use map. It doesn't easily fit on an 8.5 by 11 horizontal, but this should be a very user-friendly map, clearly articulating those place types. And yes, it's not going to fit on both, but that's fine. We can look at it if there are questions specifically for a specific area. Included there is that overall planning boundary, city limits, area hubs, and we also have the floodplain to understand the limitations around the Boise River as well. Okay, before I go to chapter 3, there's one more section in chapter 2. We do have some sections about, and if you go to the next slide, special areas. So that includes a focus on key corridors, key gateways, really looking at what the historic sites and districts are, downtown, College Airport, and the Event Center District, which recently just had its own master plan adopted. So there are some sections here a little bit with some graphics and just kind of understanding that there are some really special places in Caldwell and what that might mean and where those are. Specifically, the key corridors and gateways are accompanied by a graphic that is intended to, and it's that first one on the top, that's intended to really showcase some of the key features of these areas that we are looking at throughout the community and how that pairs with the future land use map. So kind of an entryway into Caldwell, looking at, unique signage, looking at what that corridor looks and feels like, what are the uses, how far or how close are the buildings to the street, really just a sense of arrival, and then kind of the key corridors, are they multimodal, are they are they comfortable to use, do they have foliage or tree canopy for pedestrians, amenities, that kind of thing. So there are some more specifics and some pretty graphics in that section. All right, into chapters 3 through 7, I should say. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the great things about the policy direction. So our first Goals and Policies chapter is a connected community, and this is really focusing on how we get around, how we move in Caldwell. I'm going to opt not to read the vision for each of these. You can read it if you want, but I'll say that each of these chapters is paired with a framework map and some illustrations, trying to really, in multiple ways, illustrate the ideas that have been generated through public engagement. On the next slide, though, this is just a list of the goals, I should say. It's just the goals, not policies. I should change that name here. But to give you a sense, this section has goals and policies that really cover all modes. So we're looking at traffic flow, we're looking at transit, pedestrians, bikes. We want to make sure that we're addressing safety and connectivity, and of course, other kind of right-of-way improvements. So how we are aligning our streets with other utilities, public services facilities, and coordinating with the school district, since I know that that's not only is it a state requirement, but also there are a lot of pressure points with drop-off and school safety for safe routes to school. So we've attempted to address those, all of those topics in this chapter. Not included in my presentation is an additional slide of that health. So each of these chapters also has a health component, so you can understand how the policy direction that we've recommended also works toward healthy outcomes. Chapter 4 is focused on vibrant spaces and really understanding how we want to gather, where we want to gather, and what that looks like. So on the next slide, it's a focus of the special places in Caldwell, the historic value, the culture, the identity that's unique to Caldwell. And this often crosses into the urban design realm. So how do we build these spaces, and how do we make them places that we want to be in? So how can we make other places in Caldwell as inviting as downtown, for example, Indian Creek Plaza? Chapter 5 looks at kind of the green spaces and the environmental intersection in Caldwell. So really looking at the natural areas, the parks, the greenways. It also includes the map and some great ideas for illustrations of great ideas that we've heard through the process. The second slide here showcases that, and actually builds on a lot of the work that was done this year as part of the drafting the Parks Plan, in so much as it recognizes the benefits of well-maintained, connected network of parks and green spaces. It also recognizes the environmental quality and recreational benefits of a healthy river, a healthy creek corridor, and these goals and policies also embody the intent of the future land use map that we just walked through in terms of the transition from more developed, built-up core city spaces to the rural agricultural areas on the edges of the community. Okay, chapter 6, we're getting there, I promise. Chapter 6, quality neighborhoods to call home. This is really articulating how we want to build these neighborhoods, these place types, with the intent of diversity and filling in and really making sure that we have the spaces where we can build the right type of homes for for the community. And this is, the policies on the next slide really do want to be paired with the future land use plan, the future land use map, specifically the neighborhood place types that encourage that housing mix to meet current and future housing needs, focusing denser development toward the core of the city, as we've discussed, and transitioning to more rural and suburban areas. The final goals and policies chapter is chapter 7 here, and this is in essence your economic development chapter, for lack of a better word, but looking at a vision for intentional and distinct centers. So on the following page where we've articulated those goals, this is really looking at and should be paired as well with the future land use plan. As we've mentioned, the specific place types of community centers, downtown core, mixed use centers, employment centers, and the special areas, including the airport. And really making sure that we've built these places with the intent of vibrant economic life, having services where dynamic spaces where you can live, work, play, and shop, and dine, having places where you can do all the things you need to do without leaving Caldwell. And of course, pairing all of that, all the things you want with all the things you need in terms of public services infrastructure. So the final chapter, chapter 8, is implementation. And this is, it's actually quite a short chapter, but very important. It includes how the plan should be monitored and updated, what you need to think through when you're doing development review and compliance. We have a quick understanding, we've pulled out some key implementation tools and strategies. Just here on the screen, I've indicated what we have in that chapter is we want to make sure we're developing some new plans that get into more specifics than what can be really scoped in a comprehensive plan level document. We want to build out that conservation easement development plan or program, a density bonus program, and some municipal code updates. So the new plans that we're looking at specifically, just to do a quick one, includes the downtown master plan, a historic preservation plan, among others. And then we do have some components, and we try to get into some detail about what that density bonus program could look like. The city will need to take a close look and actually codify and regulate what that looks like. But what our recommendations are for the plan or in the plan include that you might want to build in some requirements around housing type mix, affordability, or housing affordability, connectivity, public transportation, gathering places, urban design, resiliency, and kind of a design with floodplain in mind. So lots of things to consider. And this chapter also points to our appendices, which on the next slide, I want to mention that we've got another 256 pages of appendices. So we've tried to keep the body of the plan, the chapters, user friendly, and we've pulled out a lot more detail into the appendices for you. So included in that is Appendix A, which is the implementation action plan, which is essentially a spreadsheet tool for staff and elected leaders and possibly this group as well, city department heads, that kind of thing. Really use it as a tool to look at some of the kind of more specific ideas and recommendations that have come out of this process. I also want to call out the existing conditions report. While that was done pretty early in the process to kind of get our footing around the issues and opportunities, we have tried to update it. So it's another robust kind of what's on the ground report. I mentioned the health conditions assessment. That is a really cool report. You guys should all take a look at it. The graphics, the maps are really tell a different story, through the lens of health. The retail and economic development study, I'm not an economist, and so it's a little dry for me, but it does have a lot of great information. And then the community engagement summary really goes into all the things that we've heard through the public outreach process. Appendix G and H are state requirements. So the Attorney General's regulatory takings checklist, just to understand that that development and this comprehensive plan is not intending to overstep private property rights. And then capital improvement plans, all the ones that have already been adopted are included in there. So I think that's my last real slide. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and get into the nitty gritty. And I welcome any questions from you or the public. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Any questions from commissioners for our consultant or staff? And we do have some individuals signed up to speak.
Same. I was going to say, we're going to have a discussion, but let's hold off.
Okay. So I do have several individuals signed up to speak in favor and in opposition. So Ron Graves, would you like to come up and speak? State your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Ron Graves. I live at 1126 Brightwater Lane, Boise, Idaho. I represent V.E. Graves and Sons, Inc., which my brother, sister, and I own. We're the owners of 120 acres of land at 16263 Ustick Road. We've owned the property since 1954. My brother, sister, and I were born and raised in Caldwell, and although we don't live in Caldwell now, we've always considered Caldwell home. We financially contributed to the community, to the YMCA, the College of Idaho. My sister has volunteered at the Caldwell Night Rodeo for decades, and following in our father's footstep, who served on the board of the College of Idaho, or the Caldwell Night Rodeo for probably 30 or more years. We commend Caldwell on what it's accomplished over the last several years. Huge improvements. The city has brought vitality to downtown, and walking the streets of Caldwell, it reminds me of what it was like when I was in high school. Overall, we support the proposed comprehensive plan. A great deal of thought has gone into it, but we believe 2 changes should be made, which we've provided our comments by letter and electronically through your site, but we don't see that those comments have been reflected in any of the materials we've seen. These are the 2 changes that we think should be made. We believe the density of Neighborhood 1 should be increased to 4 dwelling units per acre, so as to allow the commission more flexibility in the decision process. And as your consultant mentioned, a higher density is needed in areas of Caldwell, and providing a higher density in Neighborhood 1 at the discretion of the commission would allow flexibility for higher density. In the alternative, we believe that the western boundary of Neighborhood 2 in the area between Ustick Road and Lonkey Lane and west of Farmway Road should be extended to the right-of-way of the Caldwell Deer Flat Canal, which is a natural geographic boundary line, rather than the arbitrarily imposed line of 1,320 feet west of Farmway Road. Caldwell is spending a huge amount of money constructing infrastructure along Farmway Road, and the only way the city is going to recoup that cost is through development. Low-density development is going to make it difficult to recoup those costs because it will discourage development. We can appreciate your interest in preserving agricultural land, but our property is not great farmland. No one would buy that property today for farming purposes. It is too rocky to grow potatoes, onions, or beets, which is why the adjacent property was historically contained a gravel pit.
That was your time, but seeing how we cleared out, give you another minute or so to finish your testimony.
All right, sorry. The best use is ultimately development. Land located within the area of impact for the city of Caldwell should be for municipal, public, commercial, and residential uses, and land outside of that agricultural area should be for agricultural purposes. So I think that's primarily the comments that I had, considering my time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Appreciate it. Also in favor but does not wish to speak is Maureen Frisbee. No one has signed up in neutral. We have a couple, nobody's in the audience, but a couple of names down for opposition, not signed up to speak. Richard, not sure, I believe it starts with a P. And John Darfer, I believe, signed up in opposition. So with that, staff or commissioners, I think this would be a reasonable time to ask follow-up questions with staff that I heard some of you all may have. Do you have questions for staff?
Sure.
Commissioner Boutros.
So the overall impression I had of the comprehensive plan is quite positive. There's obviously a lot of good work that went into it, but I was concerned about some definitions. The neighborhood 2, for example, allows 3-story or less housing. It's a very large part of Caldwell, and it will change the character of the city as time passes and older neighborhoods are renovated and single or 2-story homes are replaced with 3-story residential housing at up to 12 dwelling units per acre. I don't know if commissioners picked up on that when you were reviewing this. The neighborhood 3 category is apartments that can have up to 25 dwelling units per acre and be up to 6 stories. And the map shows these bracketing Highway 26 spaced behind the mixed-use zones. I'll talk about those in a minute. This area away from the highway is currently in agriculture with farmhouses, and it's a drastic change from the current use to 25 dwelling units per acre apartments. The urban neighborhood designation includes an area north of the interstate and east of the Centennial exit, currently single-family home with some small commercial and apartments. Density of 16 dwelling units per acre is allowed and may be incompatible with existing land uses in that area. The area south of the railroad has a similar mix of residential and small commercial, and allowing 16 dwelling units per acre may be incompatible there as well. I think this should either require case-by-case review and approval or elimination of the density bonus in this area to ensure the nominal density maximum of 10 dwelling units per acre is not exceeded. The description for building height is, quote, generally 1 to 3 stories, close quote, but no maximum is mentioned in this category. And I think we need to see a nominal maximum, and if the density bonus is retained, then what that maximum would be. The justification in the health intersection pop-out for for the neighborhood, the urban neighborhood, states that higher density housing can improve viability of public transportation, which improves environmental quality by reducing vehicle miles traveled. It's a weak justification for forcing people into dense urban living. Quality of life has other aspects beyond transportation efficiency. The community center allows up to 25 dwelling units per acre apartments and area hubs that are supposed to be 3 to 5 stories tall. And so finally, I get to an actual question for you. What is the rationale for location of community centers on the future land use map? When I looked at the areas that were marked as community centers, there was no explanation of why that is. And maybe they could address that after I'm done, because I'm almost done. Mixed-use zones, you ready? Can have, mixed-use zones can have up to 40 dwelling units per acre, and they can be up to 6 stories tall. I've said before, I grew up in New York City. That's New York City, and I don't see any reason in the world to do that. Downtown can be 25 plus dwelling units per acre, and I'm curious why that plus is there. So then getting down into Chapter 8, you find the description of the density bonus program. It's loosely defined, and it opens the door for a developer to use the maximum density while offering some features, minimal features maybe, that they persuade the city are sufficient. And there's a parallel history in how the PUD process is currently used. The zoning designations assume that high-density growth is desirable, and that flavor flows through the entire plan, but that's not a given. Who is advocating for high density, and is this really in accord with what is best for Caldwell as expressed by the citizens? The link to a healthy community with higher density is predicated on reducing vehicle traffic and thereby improving health. But this is a tenuous connection, since new vehicles have drastically reduced emissions. I can't see a good reason to force high-density development. I think it will negatively affect the character of Caldwell and be a detriment to the community. The new designations will also remove much development from oversight by the P&Z Commission and the City Council, since developments that are in compliance with zoning and the comprehensive plan just go through a normal permitting process. And because of that, I can't support this version of a comprehensive plan. However, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think that if we as the overall city are able to refine the definitions of the different categories, that we may be able to come up with something that retains the character of Caldwell and doesn't turn us into pockets of very, very high density.
Thank you. I think there were questions in there for you, Morgan.
I'm rapidly taking notes. There were some very good comments, and I'm glad that you did such a good, thorough review of the plan. I don't necessarily know that my notes are all exactly in order to the way you presented your comments, but I'll do my best. All of the density maximums that you mentioned, it appeared, were from the density bonus.
Yes.
Right. So that is much higher than the base max density. So in order to obtain the density bonuses, a development would have to go above and beyond what is required by code, et cetera, and they would have to meet certain criteria. We don't have that yet. We would like to draft that and bring it back to the commission and the council, and that would be codified in our code and approved separately. It would be a code. So you guys would have a chance to actually review all of those criteria. Okay, we don't think that this warrants the full density bonus maximum. Right, so we will be looking for your comments on that. Do you think that the criteria is strict enough? Do you think it is achieving enough for the city that it warrants that density bonus? We will have your feedback and council's feedback and the public's feedback on that criteria before it's ever adopted. Two, we did mention a lot of density maximums, but the density minimums were dramatically lower. So while neighborhood 2 does have a density maximum in the density program criteria of up to 12, the regular densities allowed in neighborhood 2, I believe, are, is it 2 to 8 dwelling units per acre? So much more in line with the type of development that we are traditionally seeing come throughout Caldwell. Let's see. Oh, height. There is a reason that specific heights are not listed in the comprehensive plan. So one of the things that Miriam mentioned was that this new plan is intended to be much more flexible than our existing plan. So our existing plan says, if the comprehensive plan says that you are low-density residential, you only have one zone that you can do, that is R1, low-density residential, which gives a specific height. With this new plan, neighborhood 1 provides 2 zoning districts, RS1 and RS2. Neighborhood 2 provides, I don't have it all up on me, I'm scrolling back and forth, roughly 5 or 4 compatible zoning districts. And so the maximum height for each zoning district is separate. And so we wouldn't want to put one height in this comp plan because it would basically make all those zones, or equivalent to one zone, they would have the same max height. And so we don't want to do that. We will have in code still, you know, R1 has this maximum height, R2 has this maximum height, maybe a little bit higher, R3 has this maximum height, a little bit higher. So we will still have distinctive zones with different heights. R1 would have a larger lot size minimum, a larger lot frontage, and then they would go down, as you go through the zone. So R3 would have a smaller lot size, a smaller frontage, and maybe more height. So that is why you don't see a specific number in the height for the comprehensive plan. Okay, you mentioned 40 dwelling units per acre in the mixed use zone with the density bonus program criteria. That is correct. I think the base max zone is 25 dwelling units per acre. However, if you notice in the mixed use area that it clearly says that, you know, high density residential or any residential use is a supporting use. So it's not a primary use. So we will still have land use applications that come before you. You will still have special use permits. You will still have annexations. You will still have rezones. And so it'll be the job of the commission and council to say, you know, does that fit? This is a supporting use. We already have an apartment in this vicinity. We don't think we need another apartment complex in this vicinity. We want more commercial. Apartments are supposed to be a supporting use, not a primary use. We have one down the block. We don't need another one. So I just want to explain that portion as well. It doesn't mean because it says, you know, supporting use of high density residential that every single property owner in the mixed use district could come in and receive approval for an apartment complex. Another comment that you had was that there is this neighborhood 3 place type directly behind the mixed use place type. And that was intentional because the mixed use place type is along our major corridors, especially like Cleveland Boulevard. And so we do want to make sure we have the commercial up front on those boulevards, but we did want to, in this plan, place higher density residential dwellings immediately behind this to support public transit in this community. The only way we are going to be able to support public transit is if we have the number of dwelling units adjacent to these major thoroughfares, you know, where Valley Regional Transit wants to place bus lines. If we don't have enough people that can walk to a bus line, they're not going to be ridden. And so we worked with Valley Regional Transit, or at least providing comments, and other agencies, and really this idea of, okay, let's have some transit-oriented development where we have more people, we have commercial up front, we can get the numbers we need in these areas to support public transit, is where, you know, the idea for putting that R3 behind the mixed use on these major corridors came from. Let's see. You said something about, okay, if it meets the comp plan, we're not going to see applications anymore. So nothing about this comprehensive plan is going to change which applications do and don't come to the commission. It's not changing code. You know, if code requires a special use permit, the same process we've always followed for a special use permit will be implemented. Same with subdivisions. So, that being said, the city does have some draft code amendments that we are working on to bring our code more in line with this comp plan, you know, regarding the density bonus program, regarding heights, regarding other things that you would see down the road, like maybe in a month or two. I have to look at the calendar. And some things may be changing, some, and you would have the chance to review that, because until those codes are adopted, nothing has changed.
So when those codes are, excuse me, when the codes are adopted, are the definitions of the terms of the different neighborhood types going to be incorporated in code?
So not all the drafts are complete, so I can't say for sure, but I don't necessarily think that they are, because this comp plan still directs you in each place type to the appropriate zoning districts within that area. And so the code will still reference the zoning districts, and you will still go through what is appropriate for that zoning district. There might be a section where it references, I think there's one table that references the place types, because we've done density by place type. So I think that that does reference it. But for the most part, it will still be based on the zoning district that a parcel is in.
Well, and so yeah, so that, I mean, and just for a point of clarification, my understanding, it's not any different than now. I mean, it's different in that this plan's different and it's worded differently, but currently the comprehensive plan now it serves as a layer, kind of a filter in which we look through things, but we still have to follow our city's municipal code in regards to the zoning and what's required within that zoning. And I actually think with the neighborhoods, it allows for a more comprehensive view, so we can look at the whole entire neighborhood more comprehensively, as opposed to saying this block is zoned R1 or this block is zoned whatever it is. And I think it helps, you know, potentially with some of the commentary we've had lately in our public hearings about, like, this doesn't make sense for the neighborhood at large. Now, you know, this, I think this plan, the way it's worded or kind of created, allows us to really holistically take a look at what is that neighborhood providing. Sure, we're still looking at things zoned correctly, but then we get to put it into context of what is within that rest of that neighborhood, and does that, you know, does this specific project make sense to a neighborhood too, for example?
So I'm interested in whatever ends up in code, and thereby not requiring P&Z Commission review, be able to stand on its own with regard to compatibility with the neighborhood. We're going to be seeing a lot of neighborhood 2 and 3 where there are current buildings, where they're either doing some kind of infill in an empty lot, or they're doing a urban renewal type thing. And that if that can be done and maintain compatibility with the area without our approval, then that's great. But if it is beneficial to the city's interests to retain approval, then we should ensure the code still has features that force it to come before the commission again.
For sure.
May I add one thing that I thought of after your comments? Everything related to subdivision plats obviously would still be coming through. Some things that might change would be, you know, if a commercial business right now requires an SUP in this draft revision of code that you would have the chance to comment on, it might say it's directly permitted. That being said, we have a lot of draft sections of code that are really increasing development standards. The city does not have a lot of development standards currently. We don't have a lot of design review standards. It's really pretty minimal what we require. We don't have a lot of teeth currently to say, okay, can that building increase the architectural details of its facade? The draft codes that we plan to bring you in the future, we plan to have a whole new section for multifamily development standards that really increases the design requirements, the number of materials, increase landscaping, increase setbacks. So we really are trying to beef up that section of code to really make sure that new development coming in is of the quality that Caldwell wants. But obviously that's all for another day, and you'll get a chance to review that and decide if you think it's significant enough or not.
So, are we looking then tonight for some kind of interim recommendation for approval? Or would we want to do a recommendation for approval with a condition that there be an additional comprehensive plan review, at least in part, for the areas that still are concerns?
No, we would be looking for a recommendation tonight on the plan. Nothing in state statute requires that the city adopt a code to implement the plan. I think some of the problem we've had with our current comp plan is the city never did implement code to sort of be in alignment with the comp plan from 5 years ago. We do have this intent. It's drafted. We've notified agencies. You will be seeing this probably within 1 month, a stack of code amendments. But they really are separate because the comprehensive plan is a vision. It's the public's vision. And so regardless of whether the code amendments come forward or not, I think that we would still be looking for a recommendation from this body just on the vision that the public has put forward. And we really do feel like this was supported by the public. We had a lot of comments about preserving agricultural lands, right, and keeping development closer to the urban core. And so that was the reason that some of these densities have come up some. To be able to accommodate the fact that we are shrinking our planning boundary, we will need to have more dwelling units in the city center. And just to comment on the comments from the gentleman from the public, we did receive his comments. He was a great participant throughout the process. The comments, his letter is in your packet, so you were able to see that in advance of the meeting. Staff discussed their recommendation numerous times. We really went back and forth. But while we did have that comment from 1 or 2 individuals, we felt like the number of comments from other individuals saying we really want a strong buffer between the county and the city. We want to see this agricultural sort of transition where it goes from the main urban area to a less dense area before hitting the county. The direction we got from most public comments is the reason that the map was presented the way it was tonight, and that wasn't one of the changes that staff made. Obviously, the commission has the power to make recommendations for changes between now and council, but I wanted to explain why that change wasn't made. We weren't trying to ignore the comments. We received them, we discussed them thoroughly, and I don't know if Miriam has additional comments, but I did want to make sure that you heard why we hadn't made that change. I think it was outweighed by more comments supporting the buffer.
Thank you. I'm going to ask other commissioners, do you have questions? Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple of questions. These kind of are hot topics, but I didn't really see them in there. The Griffith Land and the hotel and the fair, and then the rodeo. I didn't feel like those 3 are covered, and those 3, the rodeo at least explicitly, is like a joint effort between city and county, and it kind of feels like, and I could be wrong, that the city is building a comprehensive plan and the county is building a comprehensive plan, and they're not 100% in line with each other. And so my concern, and I don't think there's anything you can do, is that the city's doing stuff and then the county's doing stuff, and they're kind of going to step on each other, and it's going to cause some problems in some portions of the city of Caldwell because of those decisions that are made. Because I believe, from my understanding, the Griffith land is owned by the city, but has rules about how it has to function for specific county purposes. And so it's shown in here as what the city wants, but the county is involved with how it gets influenced. And so I guess those are my concerns. I don't know, do you have any input or information to help us clarify that those are
Sure.
looked at?
The comprehensive plan is really a vision for the city as a whole, right? It's very broad, it's very high level. It doesn't get into details of specific parcels. So that really is why we did the sub-area master plan. And we have that much, much, much more specific plan specifically for that area. They were both done by the same consultant. We ran the projects in tandem. The Event Center District Plan was just recently uploaded to our website so the public can access it at any time. I believe there's a reference in this plan, even in the special purpose, not special purposes, special areas, where it does talk about that and then reference people to the Event Center District Sub-Area Master Plan. And so that's all I would say. We didn't not get into it in more detail because we were avoiding it in this, and we just didn't get into it in more detail because this is a high-level plan, and we dedicated an entire master plan specifically to that site, so it can be looked at in extreme detail by anyone who wants to look.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then just one other question was ADA homes anywhere in here? I don't know that
Yes, so in fact, the density bonus program, one of the main criteria listed so far is accessible units. And so this draft code amendment we're looking at, I think that you will be seeing, provided it gets adopted and you know the form it is, we're really envisioning that having ADA accessible units will be one of the ways that people can get additional density. I think it'll really encourage more ADA units in the city.
Okay, and then the last question, sorry, Chair. The last question was, for the connected community portion, is there thoughts that we're gonna need to increase our fees? I don't know how we're gonna do that, just, I don't know. I don't think magic is gonna happen. So is there thought that we're gonna increase the fees to make that feasible?
I have not heard any discussion about increasing Parks and Rec impact fees at this point in time, but if we looked at the level of service and the city felt like that's something that was needed, we could go down that path and investigate. We did have a substantial amount of comment from the public on the need to be like a well-connected pedestrian sort of community, more pathways, more focus on green belts, better utilization of the existing green belt areas that we do have. And so, I mean, that's all I have on that one.
That's okay. I just wanted to ask. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Questions, comments? If not, this will be time I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Commissioner
Second.
Boutros, and second for Commissioner Larson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's time to deliberate. I would just add, as we kind of start this deliberation, is I was a part of the, I don't remember what the group is called, but what the planning, part of the planning group. And I would just say I want to applaud the process that the city went through to undertake this endeavor. It was a huge endeavor. As I reviewed this plan and just looked at the depth and wealth of data that's been provided and analyzed to put it into context of our city, it's really impressive, and I feel proud that just this much thought went into this presentation, or to this product that's being presented to us today. And really just this idea of what I mean, these activities were interesting but fun. Like, what would you like your city to look like? What would you know, outside of downtown, what kind of other community spaces could we create? What would that be? I also want to applaud the city for bringing in support for individuals who may be monolingual. There was interpretation services and translation services for all these public hearings, and so I just want to give kudos. And just as we move into the actual deliberation of this, I think that this plan, through this really robust process, is a really sound plan. And I hear the thoughts from Commissioner Boutros. And thinking about just kind of the practicality of this serves as the high level lens, and then that's when we dig into code, where that really is where the rubber hits the road with this. And so this inspires that, this kind of guides that, but really when it comes to what is presented to us, what things can be approved, that's going to come in through the zoning codes. And so for me, thinking, taking that step back and looking at this from that high level, I think this is a strong plan, influenced and endorsed by our community. So I'm certainly in favor of it as presented.
I am too, and I commend the city too. I liked going to the train depot and I thought that was well done, and it really, was good for everybody to be able to see that. And if you don't put your time into looking at it or going to those things, then, I'm a firm believer if you don't go do something or you don't come to these meetings and talk, then you just need to not make a comment anywhere, because it's all about participation and getting involved and stuff like that. We're going to start seeing a lot of the meetings like we had, and it's the quote unquote not in my backyard. These residential people that were here, they were once in front of somebody else. They were there in front of somebody else who didn't want them in their backyard. And it's going to continue, and you can't stop growth. So these developments are good. I think there's just some things that need to be adjusted, but I do love the map. I think it's good.
Other comments, Deliberation?
Yeah, Chair, I think overall, I appreciate what they've done. I would just, the only piece that I would ask is more, and this is later down the road, is more specificity on the exact housing type per zone, so that if we want 20% townhouses in the city, that we have that, so that you can, die in place sounds awful, but die in place. You start out when you're 20, you live here all the way till you're old, you buy an ADA home, you could die there and live your last breath in your house. And so I just think that the housing type specificity would be helpful for me as we're trying to develop them, is that we can build all these homes. I appreciate them doing it based on income, but the housing type I feel like would be super helpful. I think the cottage homes would be very beautiful to develop in the city as well. And so, but overall, the overall theme, I like that we actually have specified zones of this is our goal for these. And so I'm overall in support. There is a little concern with the density, but I just want to make sure the code gives us flexibility. So when we write the code, it gives us flexibility to say, this doesn't meet our vision, and because it doesn't meet our vision, we're saying no. Not because it doesn't meet what technically meets what the city might need, so.
And won't that come to the housing types and stuff? That'll come to us still, correct? And that, like you said, if we say there's too many apartments in this one area, we can deny that or whatever. I think we're going to still have that opportunity.
So I could support this with a condition of approval that there be a deep dive into definitions of neighborhood types and density bonus program before a comprehensive plan can be finalized. I think that gives us the opportunity to look at the validity of the neighborhood types and the content of the density bonus program, and ensure that it's done in the right sequence before the plan is finalized.
Commissioner, may I ask specifically what you are looking for in a revised definition of neighborhood 2?
I'm sorry, say again, please.
I just
rephrase what
I was looking for more direction on how you would like us to sort of look at reevaluating the definition of neighborhood 2.
I would like to, if you look at the couple of slides, there are a lot of features that are inherent in each of the neighborhood types. I think discussion needs to occur both on the number of dwelling units, what are the conditions, in which case you could increase the dwelling units. I would like to tightly bound those so that it's not the Wild West of a builder coming in and saying, I'm putting in a playground and therefore I'm putting in a super high densities, whatever. I want to make sure that it's done in an orderly way. It makes the commission's job in the future easier because there would be clearly defined rules for how the whole process occurs.
Can I just, promise that no application would be coming through utilizing a density bonus program until you have seen an application on a density bonus program?
I guess
I don't want to accept a promise.
Well, I mean, there's no way that someone could use a density bonus program density until the city has created a density bonus program. So you will see the code or there is no program.
Yeah.
So it's not just a promise, like there's like in the code, there's no way, there is no density bonus program until we create it, and so that will come to you.
Well, and my concern moreover with that is that I don't think that that's a place for the comprehensive plan, that level of detail. That's a place where we come into code, where those things are codified to a certain extent. But when we start putting those limits on it, I think, I mean, to the point of, I mean, the bonus program is not necessarily going to be outlined in the plan because it has to be codified through municipal code. And so I think that would be my concern. I think maybe an alternative to your request is that I would suggest is that maybe in the presentation, were we to approve this, that in the presentation to council, maybe there could be more robust conversation specifically talking about the bonus program and those areas of concern, so that council, I'm sure they're going to pick up on it, but if not, that they know that they're given the opportunity to hear your concerns and consider those elements before they make a decision on the plan.
Although as the process currently works, I don't, unless I decide to go to a city council hearing, that my concern doesn't get heard.
Sure. No, I guess my point is, potentially as a recommendation is we can, part of our recommendations, we can potentially approve this with requests to staff or a directed to staff to ensure that their emphasis, or at least discussing, calling out the bonus program and the other area of concern, the density concern that you wanted to address.
That's kind of what I meant by asking for a deep dive.
Okay, we can easily ensure, we could condition even, that the next presentation version that goes to council has a slide, at least one, if not more, dedicated specifically to their recommendations about the density bonus program, so that we can ensure that it is thoroughly discussed. I will point out on page 236 of the PDF, this is the section 235 of the PDF, but 115 and 116 of the plan, depending on what numbers you're looking at. This is the section of the implementation chapter where we have outlined sort of our intent and ideas for the density bonus program, but they are just ideas at this point. So I totally agree with you that before it's usable and we could utilize it for a developer, we would want more specifics. Like, you could receive 50% of the density bonus if at least 50% of your units were affordable, something like that. Real specifics with numbers and benchmarks. And so I think that is the intent for the code. But we would want that to come before you as well, so you could have your eyes on it. But I definitely think that based on your recommendation and the discussion we're having tonight, that it would be a great idea to say that we would require that the next PowerPoint dedicate.
So I would like to be
Time.
involved I would like for the commission to be involved in that process, and also in the discussion of how many dwelling units are appropriate under what conditions in the different neighborhood types. That's what I would like to see.
And
That's what I'm asking for with the deep dive.
And
Okay.
that would occur when we get to code, correct?
Yes.
I don't know that because it currently appears in the comprehensive plan. Approving the comprehensive plan as it is today means that the mixed-use zones are going to be memorialized as up to 40 dwelling units per acre.
The
Up
mixed
to,
use
right? But then I think
zones,
there's that nuance that gets implemented.
the mixed-use zones would be able to be built up to 25 units per acre until such time as the city adopts a density bonus program.
Are we ready just to make a recommendation and take a vote?
We could
I
put
mean,
language somewhere in here that says something to the effect of what I just said, right? That, anything above the maximum density would only be applicable if the city chose to adopt a density bonus program. So then we would know at least we were at the other density level.
I'm good with that.
So,
You, Dave?
any other discussion before I entertain a motion? I think.
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm of similar mindset that we're gonna look at it eventually, but I just wanna I'm of similar, we approve it, just ask the city council that they look at the density and the bonus program with, the similar level concern that we have, because we don't want, I never lived in New York, we don't want high density. We want, the goal of the plan is not that. So as long as the goal of the plan is like the first 5 are to have a community, and Caldwell is known for like a family town, and so that's what we want to keep. So if we can keep that, then, and I think that's what the vision of the bonus portion is to build housing types. ADA is not really desirable, and so to build special stuff that nobody wants to build and give a bonus for those things, that's what I'm for, so.
So do you have some recommended phrasing for a condition of approval that requests the city council focus on the neighborhood types and the density bonus program.
So I would just say, we can't require city council to do that, but we certainly can, we're condition staff, ensure that they have a slide dedicated to the bonus program so that it's fully articulating, called out in the next presentation. And additionally, I think it's reasonable to the point Morgan said, we could potentially, a second condition would be that ensure that no bonus how did you word that, Morgan?
I think I said that, Mary and I can go back and look at the plan and make sure we add a sentence or something that, you would only get the density bonus program if the city chose to adopt density bonus program criteria in their code. Otherwise, the other density cap would be it. Don't worry, I'll type it up in our.
Yeah. Well, because I'll make a recommendation, but I'm just going to, what she's got in there from what you just said. Are we good with that?
Sure. All right.
Everybody good?
Commissioner Harman, would you like to make that motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion based upon the testimony and evidence and record in this matter and upon the findings and facts and conclusion of the law set forth do hereby determine and move as follows. The request to repeal the old and adopt the new Caldwell City Comprehensive Plan is recommended for approval on the condition stated by Morgan.
And was there also the second condition that ensures that there's a slide dedicated to the bonus program in the next presentation? 'Cause
Yeah.
there was two conditions.
Okay, yeah.
That one and the second one
Okay, and
was the one Morgan
slide.
said.
Yep.
So those two conditions.
Second.
And there was a motion for Commissioner Harman, a second for Commissioner Larson. Roll call, please.
Harman.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes.
Boutros.
No.
All right, with that, motion carries. So close this hearing and takes us to item 5 is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Larson, second for Commissioner Harman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.